Hello and welcome to today's episode of the Made for More podcast. Today I am joined by a wonderful guest. Hello, Bethan Winn, and welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Ali. I'm excited.
I'm excited as well. I've been following along your journey for quite a while now, so I'm pretty excited to talk about today's topic. Before we get into that, can you share a little bit with our audience, with our listeners? Where did you come from and where are you going?
Ooh, where did I come from? So I'm originally from North Wales in the UK, from a small town called Abergele, where everyone's very big on community, and it's very much the Welsh kind of heartland. And yeah, I moved here 15 years ago to Perth in Western Australia. I was teaching in the UK and working in not-for-profits. And then when I moved here, worked at what's UWA College now. And then I've been doing more corporate training, I suppose, for about 6 years. Where am I going? Oh my gosh, wherever the wind takes me. I'm loving this journey. 6 years into running my own business, and never ceases to amaze me where I end up and who I get to speak to.
Oh my goodness, I'm excited to talk about mostly where you've been focusing most recently in the last couple of years and the work that you're
Mhm.
doing now in corporate because I think it's well and truly necessary. I think you're one of the kind of early adapters or early talkers about this very important skill. Now, the reason I found you is on your most recent book, The Human Edge, which I think is just wonderful. Yes, congratulations. It's always a beautiful journey, writing a book and then also seeing it come
Mhm.
to fruition. I'm not
Yeah.
sure if you went through that stage where you got close to the end and were like, I'm just going to throw the whole thing in the bin. It's
Oh
awful.
gosh.
It's
Oh, it's
terrible.
such a roller coaster.
And you get it and you read and you're like, oh, actually, it's okay. So tell us a little bit about the book, but then let's go a
Sure.
little bit deeper on that as well.
Lovely. Well, so it's called The Human Edge, Critical Thinking in the Age of AI. And I've been delivering training on critical thinking for about 6 years. And I can really see how, as more information has become available, throughout history, people have to do more thinking for themselves. And now suddenly we're in this economy where knowledge is basically free and doesn't mean anything. It's the wisdom and what we do with that knowledge that really sets us apart, and that's where I think critical thinking can really come in useful. That need to not just engage with whatever information is out there, whether it's AI, Google, what people are telling you, but knowing how to interpret it and knowing what your purpose is with that
Mm.
information is really, really crucial. So I'm really excited that there's a lot more interest in this kind of space as more tools become available to us. But I'm big on people and human skills, and I really believe that although technology can help us, it's those human skills, the ability to think clearly, the ability to articulate yourself, to discuss ideas, that is really, really important and gonna, make people still useful when the AI agents are taking over the world.
Yeah, do you know you're preaching to the converted because we can violently agree here in this space, I think. And just just last night, I was at my kids' meet the teacher, brand new school year, and a few people work in the IT space, in the AI space, and they're going, when are we going to teach the kids coding and prompting and all of this? And these are primary school age children, and I was sitting there and I was trying to bite my tongue, and I was like, no, no. I think I need to say something because I think for our young people, and I keep teaching this to my children, but I think it's something we need to consider in the workforce for leaders is the art of discernment and critical thinking and being able to go, is this purposeful? Is it true? Because we know there's quite a few furphies that
Mhm.
we're seeing with the
Yeah.
use and I guess AI becoming more and more prolific and people's ability to think. And, late last year, I read an article and I cannot remember what it was called, but it was essentially that the more that we're using AI, the less that our cognitive abilities are able to, remember and retain what we've been using AI for, and we're kind of
Yeah.
almost outsourcing our thinking. Now, you're a thought leader, I'm a thought leader. The idea of someone else doing my thinking is, is pretty horrific. So I'm all for this. How do we do it? And when we're thinking about critical thinking as, the practical philosophy for leadership, what do you think that means for leaders right now? But also, what do you think that means for leaders in the future when there's so much ambiguity around?
Oh, wow. There's quite a few questions there. I suppose on a practical level,
Mm.
something that I've started trying to describe is whether it's, a student writing an essay or someone at work writing a report, creating a presentation. There's a lot of what I'm referring to as patchworking,
Oh,
where
yeah.
you go, oh,
Yeah.
I'll get it to brainstorm. Oh, now I'll do that bit. I'll get it to structure. I'll get it to write. I'll get it to do this. And not really fully engaging with the information. And so at
Mm.
the end, you might get something that looks pretty, but you don't understand it.
Yeah.
So, and I noticed myself sometimes, I'd get AI to record a meeting with permission, of course. And then at the end, I'd be like, oh, I haven't written my own notes. I don't really understand what's going on here. So, what I've tended to do now is more like I'm calling it like a dovetail approach of
Mm.
just, a bit of me, a bit of the AI, bit more me, bit more AI, and then making sure that I'm fully across it.
Yeah.
I've actually, read it, edited it, done it properly. So even though I'm not like completely anti AI and I do use it, for example, writing proposals and things like that, I'm always making sure that my hands are dirty, if that makes sense. I'm getting in with the information and playing around with it. Now, your question there about, this practical philosophy for leaders. I mean, what tends to happen when we're early career is that we just follow instructions. And I've even had someone at Speaker Bureau, actually, he's like, oh, how do I sell you if you're encouraging people to ask questions? Some industries just want people to do as they're told.
Mm.
You're
Hmm.
like, okay, fine. And look, some people want to just do as they're told. They would prefer life was laid out for them. And I know there's moments where you're like, oh God, I just want the right answer.
Yeah.
But the reality is, there is no right answer. We're all a little bit right and we're all a little bit wrong about things. But when you have thought through how you think about something as opposed to just what you think,
Yeah.
then if someone questions you, you then have the confidence to be able to say, well, this is why I've made this decision. And I work quite often with that kind of intersection, people, emerging leaders or people taking on more responsibility,
Mm.
where they're like, right, I really need to level up in my strategic thinking and my, decision making and problem solving. Because, when you're at the lower end of the pyramid, if you like, the
Yeah.
problems you get are fairly straightforward, and you escalate anything tricky. But if everyone is escalating something tricky, the people at the top get the impossible things where there's ambiguity, it's complex. And when you start to break it down, most problems at work are quite complex. They involve people and multiple systems. So just sort of enhancing awareness of that and helping people get clarity when they really don't know what to do is and holding space for them to do that.
Mm.
It's often the key to that, which I always think sounds very wanky, if I'm
Well,
allowed to say that.
I mean, I think because we've been conditioned around, outcome and results and tangible ways to prove your worth, whereas we know that there has been certainly in the last maybe 10 years that creating space and the uprising of, dare I say it, soft skills and human skills and how important they are in the leadership space. Who
Yeah.
knew something like empathy would uh, be important?
Yes.
Funny. But you mentioned that you're all about the people. How do you think people are going? And what I'm seeing here as well is how do we go the connection and the communication from an empathy perspective as well as the critical thinking. Where do we and how do we incorporate both of that? So the critical thinking as well as the human skills of empathy.
Yeah, look, the as you said, there's a lot of fear. When we're scared, we don't think well,
Mm.
whatever the environment. So for the kind of nerdy people that like a model, I say Maslow before Bloom. So
Yeah.
lots of people like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. You need to feel safe
Yeah.
in order to reach the top of the pyramid. Whereas Bloom's taxonomy is an educational kind of ladder of thinking. Now, it's not perfect, but it has been used in education a lot over the last 30, 40 years. And essentially, in order for you to do the higher order thinking skills, evaluation, judgment, creativity, you need a certain level of safety. So it's funny, at one of my book launches at the Institute of Management, somebody was saying, oh, why are you trying to get us all to adopt AI? And I was like, I'm not, but I'm just trying to encourage you not to be scared of it, because if you're scared of it, you start acting defensively, you start kind of shutting down and not engaging with it. And I think no matter where you're at, a basic awareness of, what are the tools and how do we use them? I'm not saying you have to use them at all, but knowing what they're capable of is really, I think, important for anyone in any kind of professional environment these days. And they're fun, right? You can have, the way that I learned to use them was writing stories for my kids, putting their names in and stuff. And
Great idea.
even like 3 years ago, I wrote some personalized poems for clients with like personalized little cartoon versions of them as a Christmas present. And it was super fun. So just, play around with it, see what it can do. And when I was writing my book, the conversations, I encourage people to have conversations. It's very much based around dialogic learning to develop those skills that are part of my critical thinking compass. But I was having the conversations with AI to check, with different AI large language models.
Yeah.
And it was fascinating how, in the beginning, it was like, oh, it was rubbish at doing certain things. And then as time goes on, you go, oh, you're actually quite good at this now. Oh,
yeah, you're learning. Yeah.
Yeah, just doing the same thing and checking it. And, it's prompting is a form of play, I reckon. You're going, oh, what if I do this? What if I do that? And telling Claude or Chat, you're rubbish. That's terrible. Do it again.
And then it says, oh, excellent pick. Well done. Like,
yes. Yes.
Oh, thanks so much. I agree. I think it's a place for play, and I think there's some absolutely incredible tools out there which will revolutionize the human race and the way that we see work. And this is a very big, bold, all in caps. And I think people still need to be using their brains and still need to be using their cognitive skills to be able to maintain some level of, even just quality in the work that we're seeing as well. Before I hit record, you talked a little bit around what you're focusing on at the moment and what you're really interested in around thinking for yourself. Can you expand a little bit on your thoughts on that? Where are you now?
Ooh, yes. Well, I suppose because my background's in education and teaching and learning now, this whole piece around cognitive offloading, as you kind of mentioned, like making sure we're not doing that all the time. Teachers are really struggling, going, well, how do we do assessment with this? And I think there's a spectrum to be had, whether it's kind of completely cold turkey occasionally, start with a blank page, see what happens. Don't lose that skill. If it's a skill that you want to get better at, do it yourself. Don't give it to AI, through to knowing how to fully engage in that dovetailing that I was talking about. I think I'm thinking a lot about cognitive sovereignty. This is a concept that's been around since the 80s. So, what are you paying attention to? What's allowed space in your head? And, when we've got some of the most addictive devices ever to exist, look at mine with my little notes on the back. When we have these in our pockets all the time, like we have control over what we pay attention to, but it's very easy to feel that we lack agency in that. So anytime someone says to me, oh, is AI going to make me stupid? I'm like, well, that's up to you.
Good comeback.
Because it really is, it's up to us how much we engage with it. So, is it a kind of something we can just go ahead and do, and it doesn't matter if we don't know how to do it without AI, or is it something that we still want to build on? But the relationships that we have, the thinking that we do, in quiet spaces or in the shower when we're driving, like those moments are still really, really important. And particularly for senior leaders, I ask them regularly, like, what is your thinking routine? Where is your
I
thinking
love
space?
it. Yeah.
It might be walking the dog, it might be long bike rides on a Sunday, but every senior leader that I speak to who's confident around their thinking has some kind of quiet space or routine around it where they can step back and just let that what do we call it, default mode network make connections, and and those ideas bubble through.
Yeah.
Big on that.
Yeah, I agree. And you were just mentioning about we've got these devices that are so addictive. And I didn't realize how addicted I was to my device. Probably similar to you. I'm on my laptop all the time. I'm on my phone all the time. There's very blurred boundaries between when it's a work thing and when it's not a work thing.
It's for work, she says with
Yeah,
quotation marks.
my kids now have permission to be like, is it a work thing? And if it's not, then they get to take my phone.
Yeah.
But last year I went on like a little retreat, like a weekend retreat, and one of the rules was you weren't even allowed to have your phone out because you're meant to be disconnecting from the outside world, but also they were like, don't even hold it. Like if you want to take photos, take one with your mind, essentially, because just the
Wow, yeah.
sight of a phone for some people can really cause their stress to peak. And I was like, oh, that's insane. And I was happy to follow the rule, but what I found is because it was in this beautiful hinterland and we're walking around and there was like some beautiful flowers and there was some like lovely birds. And
Yeah.
my instinct, like I don't know how many times I patted my pocket to go and either take a photo of a bird so that I could Google it to find out what it was. But this like instant need for information that I didn't have at my fingertips. And it took almost the entire weekend for me to go, your phone's not in your pocket, Ali. And also like just look at the bird. You don't need to know what it is right now. Like get a grip. It was a real lesson in how often I need to find information. And do I remember it? No. Will I see that bird again? Probably 50 times and have no idea. But the addiction to go, what is
Yeah.
it? And wasn't necessarily social media. It was like an information addiction that I had. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
we've gone too
Yeah.
far here. Oh, I'll just Google that. Oh, I'll just
That's
Google that.
great though. And I think we're going to see more of that. I think we're going to see more very intentional, rules around technology and gatherings. My husband was in Madeira for 6 weeks on a kind of coding thing. And one week they were told, you're not allowed to use any technology this week. They were going off on hikes.
Wow.
And he was like, oh, I feel kind of guilty that
Naked.
I'm here for coding,
Yeah.
but they really put those rules around it. And I hear you, right? And I can feel like when work gets very busy and I'm on a lot and also responding to emails, but also facilitating all day. Although when I'm facilitating, I'm very people focused, I'm not really on my phone at all.
Yeah.
I sort of crave that. Like we have a lovely place called Dwelling Up that's an hour and a half away and it's camping in the forest and I'm on Vodafone, so the signal's shit.
Yeah. That
Excuse
helps.
my language.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love it. And yet when I get back into Signal, I'm like a little crack at it going, oh my God, what have I missed?
What have I missed? And usually nothing.
Usually nothing.
Usually
Yes.
nothing. Nothing
But isn't
major.
it funny that low level anxiety that I think most people have? And I see it. I try and be very good about if I'm in person with someone, not getting this out.
Yeah.
But like you say, it's putting on music in a workshop or it's scanning a QR code. And that's why I hate, this is a bugbear of mine. My coffee buddy laughs at me. If we go to a cafe and it's QR code
Oh,
on
on
the
the
table to
table. Yeah, I
order,
don't want to do
because
that.
you're like, we know that breaking bread with someone, sitting down, having a coffee is so like nourishing for the soul. And yet we're introducing something that's an immediate barrier to that. So yeah, I'm a bit of a Luddite sometimes in that regard.
Yes, I'm the same. I usually will go, hey, do I come up to order or what do you need? They're like, use the code. I'm like, oh, my phone's not working. They're like, oh,
Said that too. I don't have it on me. I don't know what that is.
yeah.
But yeah, like the when it comes to that, like giving your brain room to breathe, like I feel like that's an important part of all workshops that we do essentially. I have a little structure that I like to give people around decision making, and we start with permission, like who's actually allowed to make it, but then so it's point, P for permission, zoom out, O, what's the bigger picture? What are you actually trying to achieve here? And sometimes just that alone helps people get perspective on what's going on. And then zoom in. I hear a lot about data-driven decision making. What does the data tell you? What's the detail? And then the noise, like what's interfering with the clarity of your thinking. And you can't figure that out when you're in the moment.
Yeah.
Like our brains are just naturally noisy. There's bias, there's fallacies impacting, there's literally people like in your ear, like so stepping away can really help, even if it's just the walk to the toilet or to make a cup of tea or
yeah.
go and get a coffee, and then test, just try something out. I'm sure you see this as well. I like the idea that action is the antidote to anxiety. So if
Oh,
you're
that's
feeling
good.
nervous, yeah, if you're feeling unsure, you don't know what to do, just do something, even if it's just making an appointment or reaching out for a conversation, or saying we're going to try this for a week, let's see what's going to happen, but how reversible can I make it, how much less consequential can I make it in order to move forward,
Yeah.
and preserve optionality when you can. Yeah.
I think action's probably the antidote to so many things. One of my favorite mentors, Keith Abraham, he always says, activity solves inactivity. So if you want to solve the inactivity, go and do the
Yeah.
activity.
Yeah.
And I heard someone saying the other day that the antidote for procrastination is the next step, which I kind of knew
Mm,
but hadn't really put it together, but that is activity as well. So maybe we just all need
yeah.
to be a little bit more active and a little bit
Yeah. I
less
love
stagnant.
in Frozen 2 of all places, there's a song about like doing the next right thing.
Oh,
And it's
yes.
about in that context coming out of grief. And it's actually, it's like a lot of Disney songs are actually quite
Bit
deep, aren't
profound, aren't they?
they?
Yeah.
But it's a good little reminder. And I've even for the book, like people that order it for me get a little pencil along with other little goodies, but it says what's the next right thing on the pencil. And it's got an
Yeah.
eraser because it's okay to make mistakes.
Oh, clever. I love that.
Yeah,
I
just
love it.
moving forward, making progress.
I
Humans
think
are
so.
happiest when we're making progress. I really
Yeah.
believe that.
Yeah. And I think fail fast, fail forward. Just keep the momentum going because nothing's worse than just staying stuck and staying in the same place. What do
Mm,
you think? You facilitate a lot of workshops. You mentioned earlier about some of those leaders that are stepping into that new role and want to develop their strategic thinking. And you mentioned around the senior leaders that you work with on, decision making and critical thinking. What
mm,
has been the most surprising thing that you've learned from the participants in those workshops? And perhaps it's more than one, perhaps it's a cluster.
mm.
I'm not sure. What's been something that's really surprising for you?
That's a good question. I think the lack of faith a lot of people have in themselves has
Mm-hmm.
surprised me. I was sharing yesterday, I have this little delusion that I find incredibly helpful, that most people are going to like me. I'm going to like most people, and I can figure out pretty much anything. Now, these are very useful delusional apprehensions to work under because I go in expecting the best. There's some
That's
things
great.
that I will happily admit I'm crap at. Give me a spreadsheet, and I'm just like, as I was saying, doing disc profiles recently, I'm like, if you're a C, you love being at home by yourself with a spreadsheet. That's your happy place.
Yeah.
An hour of that is torture to me.
Yeah.
But
You're an
yeah,
I.
I the number of times I'm like, I just say to people, look, I really think you can do this, and they're like, wow, no one's ever said
Yeah.
that to me,
Wow.
or I don't believe that. And even people that on paper I'm like, wow, you have incredible experience, you're very senior, but the number of people I speak to when we really get vulnerable and they say to me, someone said something 20 years ago about, I don't know, my ideas aren't welcome here,
Yeah.
or not very good at that, and people hold on to it. And I think this is where writing things down or thinking it through, and as you kind of alluded to earlier, like testing that argument that you're having in your brain to go, is it true, is it logical, and is it relevant? Those three questions.
Yeah.
And a number of times when you start to dig into it, people go, no, it's not, but
Yeah.
they've never given it proper thought. And yet this doesn't really work on a podcast so much, but like I often talk to people about our thoughts going around in these tiny little concentric circles, just like
Yeah.
this is the overwhelm, the anxiety, the overthinking. And yet when we kind of expand the thinking, or we go deeper and ask a few questions of those thoughts, people go, oh yeah, that doesn't need to be a defining piece of information for me. And yet negativity bias means we focus on those comments.
Yeah.
100 people could say you're good at your job, and I'm sure the same, right? After a talk or something, you get 100 people go, that was amazing, and there's one person go, I didn't like it, and you go, oh god, why?
Yeah.
And logically there's no need to pay attention to that. It's more about them. But
Still
yeah,
hurts.
it's still, yeah, you still focus on it. Yeah. So that lack of confidence, and I think that's why consultants do so well, AI, things get outsourced to people, lean on coaches and mentors and other people. And yet we know the answer is within us. And I think it's Winnie the Pooh, is it? We're much more capable than we think we are.
Yeah, and I think that's it. We outsource the validation to so many other places when really, it's our own stuff. And one of the most interesting things I have learned since doing this kind of work is how often people think that their thoughts are true. Like they've
Yes.
never even considered the possibility that perhaps they could be lying to themselves, or perhaps that what they've said is inaccurate or have heard and have, embodied. And it's just so interesting unpacking that. And you've probably seen this as well. As soon as they go, oh, okay, hang on a minute. Let me just unravel my entire
Mm,
self-belief system of what
yeah.
that means. And it's been really a really interesting journey. Do you
Yeah.
think we're going to be seeing actually, let me just backtrack a little bit. I think that, critical thinking, I think strategic thinking is going to remain a human superpower. I'm not sure that there's going to be the intelligence in AI. I'll say it here out loud on podcasts and 6 months time I'll be eating my shorts. I don't think it's going to be replaceable. One of those skills that's not going to be replaceable. What are your thoughts around that? What will that mean for people upskilling, particularly when some of those, entry level jobs will be outsourced and replaced by AI agents? What will that mean? Kind of that jump from, school leaver, university
Mm.
leaver into all of a sudden needing to have like a higher level of thinking.
Yes, I hear what you're saying, and it's funny. I was watching Tiny Temper of all people on Graham Norton. He was talking about how nightclubs, music venues, pubs are closing around the UK, and so a lot of the practice ground for musicians and artists is
Oh,
no longer there. And my brain, always making connections, was like, this is what I'm seeing a lot, particularly in professional services. The work that the juniors used to do is now being outsourced to AI. And I was just recently with the wonderful Piddington Society in Perth running some training for grads going into law firms. And yeah, that's a genuine fear of like, well, what do we do? How do we build that? I know we may or may not agree with the stat, but like the 10,000 hours to build
yes,
mastery,
right.
where are we going to get that? And are we expecting people to just go from, zero to hero without that practice? But I think, as we've already said, like the human skills and learning how it works and just being around that as much as possible and being proactive is really important. And yeah, the strategic thinking, because it makes me laugh how often people are like, oh my God, have you seen on AI, you can build a website in 10 minutes and you can ship products and you can do this and you can
Mm,
do that and all these amazing things. And yet I'm not suddenly seeing a million new websites. I'm seeing people excited by the prospect, but not following through. So yeah, fine, you could do that, but is that actually what you want to do?
yeah.
Should you do that? And that's where the strategic thinking comes in to say, well, great, but what am I actually doing as a result of this information? And is it what I want to be doing? Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you and I could both tomorrow create 10 websites for 10 new businesses. We go, well, there's a reason why we've chosen this. And there's like a long-term vision, if you like,
Yeah.
of the kind of work we want to be doing and the kind of people we want to support. So that's when we start to think about values in decision making and, that strategic direction. And I love strategy 101. A client of mine, Ross Forrester, he says, strategy is simple. It's just, I'm here. I want to be there.
Yeah.
How do I connect the dots?
Yeah.
And yet we overcomplicate it. Now, obviously, deciding what here is, figuring out where there is, and how we would best like to proceed is much more complex.
Yes. Yes.
But
I agree.
in its essence, that's what it is. And AI can't tell you where you want to go. It'll probably have a guess, and then it'll tell you, "I'm sorry" when it gets it wrong.
Yes, yes, but it'll ask if you want it as a PDF or as, all the other things. It's really
Yeah.
interesting because I think that that is the most simple way to think about strategy. And yet when I work with, senior leadership teams or some of those exec teams and they're asked to do, the whatever the strategic plan is for the organization and
Mm-hmm.
then plan on a page for them,
Mm-hmm.
they can't do it. they don't know what it means. And when we say, hey, you're here, and this is like the slice of the pie that's for your department or your portfolio, and they
Mhm.
go, oh, is that all it is? And strategic thinking is this black box that no one
Yes.
really understands. I'm like, okay, let's simplify it and not make it quite as scary as
Yeah.
it needs to be.
100%,
Yeah.
100%. I've got a very simple diagram in my book, and I know there's lots of similar ones. It's kind of like a pyramid, right? The daily tasks at the bottom,
Yeah.
the big life-changing stuff at the top. So whether you're doing this for yourself personally as goal setting, going, I want to buy a house, therefore my daily routine needs to be this around money.
Yeah.
As an organization, we want to be, I don't know, the best in Australia by the end of 2030. What are those things that you need to be doing now to get there?
Yeah.
And I love saying to people, like, right, write down your to-do list. Which things on this list are actually contributing to that big vision? And some people are like, oh, everything. And some people are like, oh,
Nothing.
nothing.
Whoops.
They're not, and I think we all do it. Lots of people, like, we avoid the big levers. The big levers are scary, the kind of things that are really going to have impact are often the things that we go and read about more instead of doing the thing that's going to
Yeah.
move
The
it
first next
forward.
step, right? The next right step. Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
Amazing. I've loved having this conversation. What do you think your top five tips are for leaders when it comes, well, any piece of wisdom,
Mm.
whether it's around critical thinking, whether it's around strategic thinking, or just what you've garnered over the years?
Oh gosh, right. Um, have more faith in yourself, first
Yep.
and foremost, as we were saying, you and find the evidence that pumps those tires, cling on to that evidence, whatever that looks like for you, that you're doing okay.
Yep.
You're much better at this than you think you are. Give yourself permission to think a bit differently. Like, you
Yep.
don't need to ask for that. It's funny, just last night I got asked what's my word of the year, and everyone's saying like empowerment and da da da. And I wrote kale. And it's funny, Jalissa that gave me the task. She's like, of course you had to do something a bit different, didn't you? And I was like, oh, is that different? I don't know. Like, just,
Like
put the
kale,
blinkers on,
like the lettuce.
like the vegetable, but
Oh
that
yeah.
represents doing the hard thing for me. Kale
Oh,
is like, when you're chewing on kale, you're like, oh, like I'm doing something good for myself. I hate kale, really. No, oh well, it's all right in a restaurant. But spinach, for example, same kind of thing, right? We're going to feel better as a result of doing this hard thing, whether it's, I don't know, lifting weights or making phone calls or,
yeah.
setting up my body email list.
Right.
It's, the hard thing. Do the hard thing, I suppose. What else? Be careful of confusing being busy with making progress.
Mm-hmm.
That kind of feeds into what we were just talking about.
Yeah.
Just because there's a ton of stuff on your to-do list doesn't mean it's all going to move things forward.
Yeah.
Um, think about your questions. Question your questions.
Yeah.
What questions are we asking? Because as essentially, critical thinking is a lot about asking questions. But yeah, what assumptions are we making? Are we solving the right problem? What happens if we leave it? Where will we be in 10 years' time? Is it solvable or manageable? All of these questions, these are good questions to
Yeah.
ask when
Yeah.
you're sort of in the mix.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like, zoom out before zooming in. I know a lot of people
Mm.
love the data. They love a beautiful Power BI dashboard. And I'm like, yeah, but what are we trying to achieve? What's it for? So that's one of my favorite questions for any activity. What's it for? And even that is a really good way to get focused on the actual result that you're trying to achieve through that.
Yeah.
Um,
Love it.
and be honest with yourself about why you're doing something.
Eek.
Yeah. What's it for? Oh, posting on LinkedIn. It's to boost my endorphins and dopamine for the day.
Yeah. Someone liked it. Hooray. Amazing.
Yeah.
So many good tips there, Beth. And where do you hang out? Where would you like people to connect with you if they're wanting to find out some more info or just be now in your sphere? Where's your
Yeah.
platform of choice?
LinkedIn is where I try and be professional most of the time.
Right.
And Instagram, there's more kind of, just the daily reality of life as a speaker and facilitator and author. So on stories on there and stuff. And then my website, bethanwinn.com.au. People can find out more there. Yeah, just drop me an email if there's something of interest.
Amazing. We'll pop all of the links in the show notes for today. Any last minute things that you would like to share before we say goodbye?
Oh gosh, I just thank you. Thank you for
Oh,
having me
thank
on and
you.
sharing your spotlight with me. It's been an absolute pleasure. And yeah, just very grateful for the opportunity.
Oh, that's so lovely. I'm so grateful to have you on and share your expertise with the audience. I'm sure they have enjoyed this thoroughly and are all rethinking their thinking to see what they need to be thinking about. Love it. Thank you, Bethan. Until next time, take care.
Take care. Thank
Bye.
you.